Well, welcome everybody. Good evening. Lovely to see you all. We've got a lovely group for this evening, and welcome to some new faces that we have, which is lovely. We always welcome new faces and new participants. I'll give you my preamble, my introductory spiel. So this is the Deal Mindfulness Group, and there's no programme to this. We don't follow a programme, but we tend to have a sort of a set, well, not a set format, but a format that we follow. In that every week we have a topic, and it's a different topic every week. When we talk around a theme and talk about how it applies to our lives, and then how mindfulness relates to that particular theme, and often, a lot of common elements to it come up time and again, which is nice, because I suppose it helps to embed some of the practice. So this week the topic is mindlessness, however you want. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. But the principle behind the group is really to enable people to develop their own mindful practice. There are no rights and wrongs. There are no definitive and prescribed approaches to practice. And my personal belief is that it is a personal thing, and everybody can approach it differently, everybody can practice it differently, whilst there are commonalities to it and approaches which are across the board. The way that people approach it individually differs, and that's fine, that's great. There's no right and wrong to it. And really the aim of the group is just to help people to develop their own practice and to talk about it, and to, I suppose, support each other and enable each other to bring mindfulness into their being, not just their lives, but into their being. For our new faces, do you have? I mean, I met you guys before, so I know that you've had an introduction to mindfulness, so you know a little bit about it. It was Martine, wasn't it? Yeah. Do you know anything about mindfulness?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I've looked up quite a lot on YouTube and everything.
Good. Okay, so you know that it's about being in the present moment. That the past is gone, and we can't change the past or do anything about anything that's happened in the past. The future hasn't happened, so we can't do anything about that, or shouldn't give too much concern to the future, because we don't know what's going to happen. The only moment in time that actually exists, and the only moment in which we can experience being alive, is this moment in time right now. Everything that's happened in the past has just led to this moment. And so, the practice of mindfulness is very much about bringing yourself to the present moment, bringing your awareness to the present moment, and by doing that, the side effect, if you like, is that you can remove a lot of the anxiety that comes with worrying about past and future, and just be aware of your life, and aware of being alive, and how special and fantastic that is. So what we do at the meetings, we have a few exercises that we do that we intersperse with discussion, and it is very much discussion. So as people that have attended before will know, everybody is welcome to contribute as much or as little as they would like to the proceedings. Okay, so the topic for this week is mindlessness. And I plumped upon that as a topic purely based upon something that somebody said to me, because I was talking about the things that I had coming up over the course of this week. over the past few days and coming up tomorrow, and I've got quite a few things that I've got to do. And I was just talking to somebody about these various meetings I had to go to and things that I had to do. The subject of the Mindfulness Group came up, and they just said to me, "Oh, yeah, of course, because you do your mindless thing." And I didn't feel that it was appropriate to correct them at that point and say, "Oh no, it's not mindless, it's mindfulness." And then it was afterwards when that conversation had finished and I walked away, and it just pricked something in my mind, and I was thinking, "Oh, actually, in terms of, is it mindless?" In terms of what mindfulness is, because mindfulness is just a name, isn't it? It's just a label, really, for this practice, this way of being. Not even it's not something that you do. It's just something that you bring to your life and bring to your being. So mindfulness is just a label, just a name for it. So I started thinking about mindlessness. Now, what often happens with the topics that come up is we think about the negative connotations to it and the positive connotations, and then how that relates to mindfulness. And I suppose from a negative perspective, if we think about being mindless, I suppose we can think about people being not thinking, about people acting without due care and consideration. People that go through life mindlessly would be switched off and unaware, just stumbling around like zombies, without any care and attention to what's going on around them. So in that sense, it's the exact antithesis of mindfulness. So it's this very unaware state. So yeah, on that one hand, mindlessness is a negative thing. Implies not being aware, not showing any care and attention. But then, on the flip side, and this ties in with something that somebody handed me a book earlier in the week, saying you should read this. You can't borrow it now because I haven't finished with it, but when I have, you should have a look. And so they just gave it me to flick through. And I'm trying to, I think it was called Thunk, or Thunked. Thunk, I think it was called Thunk. And the guy that had written it, it was all about the mind. And the fact that the mind is an incredibly powerful and useful thing. Without a mind, we wouldn't be creative. We wouldn't be able to achieve lots of wonderful things and operate on a day-to-day level. However, we are also slaves to our mind. If you think about the sources of anxiety and a lot of the problems that we may experience in our lives, many of those are as a result of our mind. Particularly in terms of past and future, our mind goes over the past and repeats it and regurgitates it and makes us worry about it and think about it. And then also it does that projecting into the future and making us consider what might happen. And it's very difficult often to switch off the mind. We become slaves to it because that's what brains do. They're constantly generating this babble of thought and ideas, positive and negative. And it can be very difficult to switch them off. And the premise of this book, from what I gathered from reading the introduction and the blurb on the back, was that when that happens, when we become slaves to our mind, that he applies this term thunked. You've been thunked by it. You are you become a slave to it, rather than being able to utilise your mind appropriately and when you should be able to do it. So that's where I came from in terms of determining mindlessness as a topic. And I'll talk a bit more about it in a moment, but first we should do an exercise. I've rambled enough for the beginning of the meeting. We should do an exercise just to get us all nicely in the moment. So we shall begin by sitting and engaging our senses. So we start by just having a look around and seeing what we can see. And just taking in colours and shapes as we see them. There may be colours and shapes up there, or colours and shapes there, wherever they may be in this moment. And once you've had a look around, you may close your eyes and bring your awareness to the weight of your body sat in a chair. And just be aware of your body in contact with the chair. So you can feel the pressure of your back on the backrest. The pressure of your bottom into the seat. Your legs in contact with the chair. Your feet in contact with the floor. Just more generally aware of your body, aware of your posture. And you can work your way down through your body, just be aware of the different parts, so aware that you have a head. Aware that you have ears stuck on the side of your head. Aware that you have a nose, a mouth. Aware of shoulders and neck. Aware of arms. Aware of chest, stomach. Aware of legs. And you can engage your sense of smell and be aware of smell. And then aware of taste. And then finally you can become aware of sound. For the next few moments, just allow sound to enter your ears. Accept sound as it happens, moment by moment. And if your mind wanders while you're listening, if you become distracted by thoughts and ideas, that's okay. That's fine. Just be aware that those thoughts and ideas have crept in, and then just bring the awareness back to just listening.
Sorry, I've had problems with tinnitus with that.
Okay, that's okay. I won't strike it again. So with an exercise like that, as I've mentioned, when we were doing it, I said if your mind wanders, if thoughts and ideas come into your mind, it's okay, just be aware that that's happened, and then bring the awareness back to listening. And that's what minds do a lot, that's what brains do, they generate thoughts and ideas and distract us. And mindful practice can happen in many different ways. So it can be very small exercises, maybe just being aware of the breath, 2 or 3 mindful breaths, or as you're walking somewhere, just being aware of what's going on around you. But then another aspect to mindful practice is more formal meditation, I suppose, where you do sit for a length of time and just sit and be with yourself and be with your thoughts and be aware of them, or sit and just be aware of your breath. And a big part of practice is acknowledging when the mind is wandered and then bringing the awareness back to something very simple like the breath. We'll do that later. We'll sit and breathe. And so that wandering of the mind, that constant chatter that can cause us a lot of displeasure, is that thing that I mentioned before, that was the topic of this book, this idea of being thunked, being a slave to the mind, because there is that constant chatter. And part of the practice of being mindful is to find a way to find an antidote to that chatter, find a way to remove some of that noise and that chatter, and I suppose in a way to become mindless, to not be a slave to all of that goings on that can cause us stress and anxiety, that can cause us to have negative thoughts, that can cause us to be critical, that can cause us to constantly want to label things as being good and bad, that causes us to expend huge amounts of energy thinking about this and that. An element to mindful practice is to be mindless, to just be. Because it's something that I've talked about previously on many occasions, is the fact that the real you isn't your mind. We may think it is. We may think that we are defined by what we believe, what our particular thoughts are, particularly our beliefs. We think that what we believe about certain subjects, whether it's religion or whether it's personal beliefs about other things, about life, society, whatever, we feel that they are what define us and they are what make us us. But the reality is it's not. That's just a layer. But the real you, the real living being that is you, sits above that almost. There's this idea of this thing called the observer. It is possible as you practice mindfulness, and as you become aware of your thoughts and are able to observe your thoughts, you connect with that observer. It's almost like you are able to watch the activity of your brain in the same way as you would watch Coronation Street. I always mention Coronation Street. I was thinking I'm not even an avid Coronation Street fan. That's my wife who watches Coronation Street. It's on. Is it on now?
Finished.
But in the same way as you would watch a program on the television, you are able to almost watch the activity of your mind. So those thoughts and beliefs and things that happen in here, we can actually observe them. We can almost step back from them. And it's a difficult concept at first for people to grasp because they're so connected with their thoughts and their beliefs and their mind that they can't. It's difficult to fathom the idea of being able to observe those, that they are not us, but they're not. You are not that layer. The real you actually sits above that and is able to observe that.
I've experienced that.
Yeah.
During meditation and actually just walking down the street.
Yeah.
I've had to kind of work it to get there. It's like that different for practice and meditation on a regular basis. So then finally I'm able to get into it. Really cool when you get there.
It is. Well, it's because our brain is so central to our experience, both at a conscious and unconscious level. It can be very difficult to feel that you can step back from it. There's an analogy that Alan Watts uses, who's a philosopher that has done a lot of. He looks at a lot of Eastern philosophy and has translated a lot of Eastern philosophy across into English and incorporated it into his own philosophy. And he talks about it being similar to biting your own teeth. In that because we use our mind to study our mind, you can't disconnect the two. But the reality is you can. Through mindful practice, you are able to observe the machinations of the mind and see them for what they really are. Or not even see them, just experience them for what they really are, which is just this electrical activity through what is little more than water. So the point I'm getting to is that, yes, mindfulness is actually about attempting to obtain a state of mindlessness. So there is less mind, there is less of that activity clouding our awareness, because that's what it does. The mind clouds our ability to see and experience life for how it actually is in this moment. Because it's always there making judgments. That's something that we were talking about in the week, isn't it? We were talking about judgments and judging situations and making judgments about what we are presented with in this moment, rather than being able to just accept and experience what is happening in this moment, and to be able to just accept this moment for what it is, whatever it may be. To be able to do that at a very authentic and pure level requires us to be mindless. Because if we're mindless, then we're not judging it.
I just want to I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't sit, the word doesn't sit right, because mindless to me
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah.
It's like, when you're doing 50 things and you haven't thought about a single one of them, and then you don't realise you've done them or you've done wrong, like the children I can only relate to when they were young,
Yeah.
getting to the point where you've totally forgotten the next minute what you've done. And that's mindless. That's like, to be mindful, I need more of power, I need my brain to work better. To be mindful, I need to be more aware. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I can't, when you keep using the word it's mindless, it doesn't, to me it just
Well, that's it. Well, that's what I'm trying to.
Struggle.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to flip it.
Trying
Exactly.
to get some positive out.
Yeah, because there is that, definitely.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
It's a mind. It's a mind with less clutter.
Yes.
A mind with less.
Like I said, I do understand,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't sit.
Well, that's fine. But you're thinking about it. That's the whole premise of it, is to just to get you to think differently.
Is it? How I'm seeing it really is consciously resting the mind.
Kind of, yeah.
If we go to sleep at night time, that's like a detox. I've been led to believe it's like like we detox our body, the mind is detoxed if we can have restful sleep. If you consciously rest your mind, like we've just tried to do, to the best of our ability, it's sort of cleansing and making us a bit fresher to be aware of. Right, let's sort the kids out now. It's instead of unplugging the TV, if you like, for instance, and then going out of the room and think, did I unplug that TV? Just being aware, being a bit more fresher to be aware of actually what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, bringing it back to what you would say, Julie, you can think of it, if this is the mind, we can put in the, okay, we've got to take the kids to karate, and we've got to take them to ballet, and we've got to remember to feed them and do the laundry. And then we've got to remember to go to work, and we've got to remember to pay the bills if they're not all going out by direct debit. And we can keep going, can't we? And we can keep putting things in. And then we can add in all of those beliefs that we have, and then we can add in all of that activity that our mind just generates, all those beliefs and thoughts and ideas which, for good or bad, go in there. How much can we get in there before it overflows, or it becomes too full before it becomes too full to...
But why is it easier to do that than to take it all out and have 5 minutes?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. So that's what when I say mindless, I just mean less in the mind.
Yeah.
Find a way to just periodically
Just be.
tip it out and just be an empty bowl in this moment.
We used to say, didn't we, when we didn't want someone to worry, pay it no mind.
Yeah. Yes.
Don't waste the
Exactly
mind
right.
on that crap, basically.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Or if somebody's offended you and you keep mulling over the random space in your head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
That's exactly it. Our brains, purely by nature, constantly whir away. And if we let them, they will fill themselves up
And do damage.
and then do damage. because they either become clogged up or full, and then they don't work properly. And then we are not able to experience the present moment because we're just this bowl full of, for want of a better description. While I've been messing with words and playing with words around, just.
Another analogy that I've been very aware of is the brain kind of oscillates at different levels. When we're really alert, it's really running at full bore, and and there's a creative level where it's a little bit lower down and not so much energy in the vibration, if you like, and the frequency, if it's making sense for an engineer. And then, when you're relaxed, your brain's oscillating at a lower level, a lower frequency, lower energy, and then when you're really kind of in a meditative state, it's lower again.
Yeah.
And then when you sleep, it's lower. If you're coma, then really low, too low. So I think that helps.
That's it, but it does. The brain can operate at different levels and at different capacities. And what mindful practice should enable us to do is to be aware of that, and also be aware of when maybe it's operating at a level that's not appropriate, or that's preventing us from experiencing being alive in this moment for what it is. So being mindful is about less in the mind, so that we can connect with the observer and the real you that is a living being. It's that whole, we're not human thinkings, we're not human doings, we're human beings. So let's remove the doing, let's have less in our mind and just be alive and enjoy being alive.
So with the observer, is that sort of being, you sort of being out your body?
Kind of. It's I was going to say the concept, but it's not really a concept, because it is different thing. I suppose it's different things for different people. For some people they say, it's your soul or something like that. But it's more about, I suppose, tapping into what Nick was saying about levels of consciousness. And the observer is the part of your being that is able to observe that activity. A lot of what happens in the mind, without wanting to sound like a psychologist or something like that, a lot of what happens in the mind which is negative is the action of our ego. Our egos are the part of our mind that are preoccupied with self-importance and thinking that we're right. And the ego can also be a very negative thing. It's ego that has all those beliefs about self-worth and things like that. So for those people that perhaps have issues in that department, that's their ego at work. And so we can quite easily become slaves to our ego, but that's just one element to our consciousness and one element to the way that our minds work. But there is this part of our consciousness which is above that can observe that happen, and it comes through practice. And if you do sit, as we just did a moment ago, if you do sit and just be aware of one thing, we'll do it in a moment, we'll just be aware of breathing. You will, when your mind wanders, when you sit and your mind wanders, and I say be aware that it's wandered, the observer is the bit that notices, the part of your consciousness, wherever it might be, that actually becomes aware that your mind has wandered, that you've been distracted.
The more you do it, the more you become aware in different situations.
Something then happens consciously that makes you go, actually no, I'm supposed to be following my breath, and brings your awareness back to breathing. That's probably an action of the mind. But in that split second, when you are aware that your mind has gone off somewhere else, and you are aware of what those thoughts are, and that they are not, that your awareness is not where it should be when you're practicing, either on the breath or on sound or whatever it might be. In that split second, when you make that observation, that is the observer that notices that activity is taking place. Does that make sense?
It could even be another place in your mind.
Yeah,
You know,
well, yeah, it probably is.
Whatever your
But
perception of it.
it's, yeah. I mean,
One thing could be like you had said, the mind's eye. You know.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's almost like you've got a video camera over your shoulder, and you kind of see yourself doing something before you do it, and then you kind of think of what the outcome's going to be through doing that action, and you can sort of pedal back and do a different action instead. That's what I find.
well, that's it. It's a very difficult thing to pinpoint, and as a concept, it's a very difficult concept to get your head around. It's that whole thing about biting the teeth, because it's our brains that do the thinking. It's our brains that process ideas and come up with ideas. And on one level, you could say that mindfulness is just an idea. This idea of being aware of the breath to bring you to the present moment could just be a thoughts and a concept. But as you practice, you begin to become aware of the fact that that isn't the case. That there is this observer that's the real you. That's a very pure, almost just pure awareness. Just the pure awareness of the present moment without labelling things. Awareness of when the mind is distracted, awareness of the body, just pure awareness is the observer, if that makes sense. It's difficult because I'm trying to explain it using language, and language is just more ideas. Somebody, language developed, and the spoken word and the written word really is just ideas.
For me, it's something I use when I've got a moment where I think it's getting a bit out of control.
Yeah.
Whether that's being upset or busy or ill or whatever, my head's... at that time I just don't feel very in control.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've sort of learnt to do and practice doing, is I've got almost like an imaginary stop button. And I hit my stop button and sort of internally just take a step back and look at me and what's happening and the situation, and take a step back from it and think, right, what do I actually want to do with this? Do I want to keep screaming at the children? No, I don't really want to keep screaming.
That's it. That's it. But there's just that little moment when you just become aware.
Yeah.
That's all you are. You're just being awareness. And I suppose that's what it is. That's the real you is, irrelevant of your body and irrelevant of your mind. It's just that split moment of just pure awareness. And that's the observer. And the more you connect with that, the more mindful you are, because then you're not a slave to your body or physical conditions or your mind and mental conditions and mental states. And it's a much purer thing. But it's something that's very difficult to put into words. Philosophers have been trying to do it for thousands and thousands of years, some more successfully than others and many more successfully than me. But the only way you can really understand it, bringing it back to the mind again, is just to practice.
Yeah, but I've just been mindful of some less effective than you, Jim.
Right. Well, good. I'm glad there are people that are less effective. No, I'm not glad that there are people less effective than me.
No, but that'll be a truth.
Okay.
Different levels.
There are. Yes, there are.
I quite like a formal practice in a group.
Yeah.
Because it makes me a bit more aware.
Yeah.
Because I haven't practiced this for some time. But if I do it on I was going to say tape, then it show me age. Doesn't matter.
No.
On a CD, when you're sitting with that CD for 10, 15 minutes, and you go, if the mind wanders, just bring it back. And that's when I can be aware that it's done it. And you say it, and I think, yeah, my mind's wandering. Don't give yourself a hard time, bring it back. And I need that.
And it is easy.
I struggle to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I can do it,
Yeah.
But I struggle to do it on my own. It's easy for someone to go, your mind's wandering.
Yeah, that's
The
it.
more you do it, the more you become aware.
Yes.
That's it.
And the quicker you empty your mind, and then you get into
And then you
what
start
you
with
want
Jim's
to be.
voice in your head. And you just hear it.
It was last.
Mind's wandering.
I'm like some mindful stalker infecting you all with my voice.
Antenna.
You see, I'm not a hypnotherapist for nothing.
Oh my God.
There's trigger words. You've all got trigger words planted. You were wondering why you suddenly start clucking like a chicken.
But I think, like you were saying, if someone started to talk to me about trying to have an out-of-body experience, I'd just be, forget that, just go away. That's, you know,
Because your mind's already
it's
full.
it's too airy-fairy for me. It might suit some people.
Yeah.
But if you tell me to just take that pause
Just be aware of
and
your
be
breath.
aware,
Yeah.
that to me makes.
Well, that's it, and that's what.
Someone else might call
but
that
that's-
out of body. And
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that I like to encourage within the group is the fact that it's however you want to do
Yeah.
it and however you feel comfortable doing it. You know, if you do have an out of body experience and that's what you would like and that's what you enjoy, or that, fine. You know, as long as it's mindful, as long as it comes from a mindful place, then you know, however you experience it in that moment is how you're experiencing it in that moment, and that's great.
Here's a question, then do you have to be open-minded to experience it as well?
Well, yes, I would say so. Your mind does have to be open, because it is about experiencing this present moment and everything that is encompassed and contained within this present moment. And for your mind to be aware of that, you have to open it, certainly.
And
I don't
stop
know.
analysing it. That's the thing
That's-
I think
yeah.
And just one of the really simple exercises where you say to just look around. I remember one of the first times that I came to the group and you said, don't label things, don't.
I don't say that
Don't
anymore.
think what colour it is.
Because people commented and said, as soon as I say, don't label the objects, you immediately start going, well, that's a window, that's a candle.
But
But
really,
it's-
it was colours.
Also
I remember looking round going, that's red, that's yellow, that's black, that's brown. And I kind of stopped it. It's really hard
It's
to
hard.
stop doing it.
It's really
Your
hard.
brain
But that's
automatically.
the brain. It's like if I now say to you, don't think about penguins,
That's right.
you've immediately got an image of a penguin in your head.
Yeah.
Because you have, even though I said don't think about it. Because that's what brains do.
Yeah.
They don't obey your command.
It's like the breathing things. I used to work in healthcare, and as soon as you said to somebody, breathe normally, they instantly stop breathing normally
Yeah.
because they're thinking about breathing, and when you think about breathing, you're not breathing.
Well, I still remember being a young child and at junior school, them teaching us life-saving skills. You know, what you do if you come across somebody that's fallen in a canal and teaching you how to tie your trousers to your jumper and to your shirt to throw it in. And the one thing that they said there that I still remember now, despite the thing about tying your shirt and your trousers together, was that what you do not say to them is you don't say, don't panic.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you say to somebody, don't panic, they start to panic.
Because what you're actually saying to them is there's something here to be panicked about.
Exactly. So, and because that's what the brains do. Even you know, people saying to themselves, because I know people do this. I've done it myself. You say, don't think about that, or don't be like that. Don't do that. You're being silly. You don't think about that. It's irrelevant. Of course, the more you say, don't think about it, don't do this, the more it's there. So you need an antidote to that. You need some mechanism that prevents you from having to say to yourself, don't think about whatever it is, your financial difficulties or whatever, don't get yourself wound up about this thing.
It's like saying calm down.
Yeah.
So trying to say calm down.
Oh
so
yeah.
punch
Well,
you
that's the most incendiary thing I can say to my wife.
Oh, absolutely.
If I say to her, calm down. that's like a touch paper. find the nearest trench. Absolutely, yeah. Just calm down, take a breath. Exactly right. So all you can do is be mindful yourself. Yeah, and rather than saying that to yourself, if it's because it is a very personal practice, rather than saying it to yourself, don't think about that, don't. It's having mindful exercises and mindful practice that you can, I suppose, fall back on. Then you have that tool in your arsenal to prevent you from panicking or thinking about penguins or whatever it may be that your brain is.
I know.
Well, don't think about penguins. Think about parrots instead. Or don't think about parrots. Don't think about birds at all. Okay. Right. Let's connect with our breath, because this is of all the elements to mindful practice, by far the most powerful is connecting with the breath. Our breath happens in the moment, and it is impossible to have. It's impossible to, you can't make judgments about your breath. You shouldn't label your breath. So just by being aware of it, you can bring yourself to the present moment and allow the observer to really come to the surface. Because I think that's what happens. When the mind is full, the observer gets pushed into the background. And we want to be able to bring the observer out so that we can just be awareness, so that we can experience being alive. So connecting with the breath is one of the easiest and simplest ways to do that. So just be aware of breathing in and breathing out. And so for the next few moments, just follow the three components of the breath. You breathe in, you breathe out, and then there is a pause. Just be aware of each of those three components of the breath. In, out, and pause. If your mind wanders, just be aware and observe the fact that it's wandered and bring the awareness back to the breath. Breathe out and feel happy, being aware, being alive. Smile and be happy at the fact that at this moment in time, you're absolutely fine. Breathe in and feel alive. Breathe out, smile alive. And then in that pause, allow that smile and that happiness of being alive to just dissolve into your being. In that pause, just allow that happiness and that peace to just fill your being. Who else kept having an image of a penguin? It kept coming up while I was breathing, but it's not. It's actually, that's a good. You know, something like that is good, because then you're like, oh, there's the penguin again. No, great. So over the course of the next week, I invite you to just breathe. Find a moment to just sit and just breathe, and just experience those three parts: breathing in, being aware that you're alive and breathing in, and then as you breathe out, just smile. Allow yourself to smile at being alive. And then in that pause, in that moment of peace, just allow that smile to just dissolve through your being.
With your breathing, can I just ask, is that like with a circle you're imagining? Or something like that?
You can imagine a circle if you like, but more than anything, just be aware of the breath. Because your breath happens in the present moment. You can't breathe in the past, you can't breathe in the future, you can only breathe in this moment in time right now. And breath is not controlled by the mind. It's something that your body does. And so by being aware of it, you connect with being alive, and it brings you instantly to the present moment. Because you can't breathe in the past, that breath only happens now. So by just being aware of that, it brings you to the present moment, and also it gives you something that you can bring your awareness to when it drifts off. So when the mind does its thing, where it generates images of penguins or whatever, you can go, no. You have that moment where the observer kicks in and says, you've gone off, and then you just come back to being aware of the breath. You're back in the moment. And you know, as long as you're sat and you're breathing, you're all right. That's the essential, fundamental thing. You know, everything else is inconsequential. You know, we may think that there are all these other important things that we should be concerned with, but fundamentally, right at the heart of it, just breathing is actually all there is and the most important thing. And so just by being aware of the breath, it gives you that peace in that moment. And then you can go on and think about penguins all you like. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Lovely to see you all. And thank you for your contributions to our discussion. I think we certainly we went to a level that we don't normally go to. Interesting. I hope you enjoyed it.
It's interesting.
And yeah.
I'm going to buy some penguins on the way home.